paramount to know that I am not a farmer by trade or education. I'm not a biologist. I'm a chef, and when it comes to farming snails, I'm often kind of thinking in a chef mindset. So I've always got that end product, end user in my brain. My name is Taylor Knapp. I'm the head snail wrangler of Peconic Escargot, which is in Cutchogue, New York on the North Fork of Long Island. Peconic Escargot started in, let's see, it's been a long time now, 2013, I guess. And at the time I was the chef of a restaurant in Greenport, fell in love with the area, realized pretty quickly that it was just every chef's dream to be in a place like this where you're kind of surrounded by several different bodies of water, farmers that all care deeply about the products they're creating. The proximity to New York City and the amount of kind of hungry, curious cooks that live in this area has made it a great place for us to have a business. But I wanted to do an escargot dish with some local snails. I turned to a chef friend of mine to ask him if he knew of anyone doing this, and he said, no, but you should raise them yourself. And he was totally joking, and I kind of took it as a joke at the beginning. But the winters on the North Fork are very slow and lonely, and sometimes you have nothing else to think about but making a snail farm. So the snails that we raise are the petit gris variety, Cornu aspersum, or the little gray snail. And they originally came over from France to the US in the 1850s, and they kind of went wild in these hot, humid climate. There's hundreds of different snail species, and some of them you can eat and lots you can't. And of the ones that you can eat, we think this one's the tastiest. Our snails, we sell both in the shell and out of the shell, and we sell the entire thing. So it's almost like getting a clam versus a clam strip. So we always say it has the flavor of a mushroom. It's very earthy, not seafoody at all. Flavor of a mushroom and the texture of a clam. The farm itself is quite small. It's a small farm, but a big snail farm. We've got anywhere between 30 and 70,000 snails at any one time, kind of at different ages. And the reason we're in a greenhouse is because the USDA requires us to keep the snails very contained. The snails are gonna do what they wanna do. It's almost kind of like beekeeping, with the beekeeper or the snail farmer in this case, to kind of push things along, feed them when they need to be fed, move things around if they need to be moved around, but they're growing, they're mating, they're doing what they need to do without my assistance, really. I spray all these guys down with mists of water. They don't drink through their mouths, they absorb all that through their skin, so it's really important to keep them moist. So there's another new process that we're kind of doing now, where we have cups of dirt inside of these pens, and they'll go to it, deposit 50 to 100 eggs, and then they go away. So there's no mothering instinct. They've left the eggs. They're not going to come back to them. A portion of them are cured for caviar, so they're rinsed really well, and then they're cured in a saltwater brine, dried, and packed into tins. And then the ones that were hatching just stay in a separate container, and 2 weeks later, they hatch, and you have these tiny little baby snails. Then it's about 6 to 9 months from egg to maturity. They form a little lip or a baseball cap on the edge of their shell when it's gotten as big as it's going to get. And that oftentimes is a different size for a lot of these guys. There's big oysters and small oysters, and big clams and small clams, and big snails and small snails. When they're growing, we're feeding them a dry diet. We use some spent grain from some of the local breweries with supplements of, greens and herbs and things just to keep their diet interesting. One important distinction of our product is that we're finishing it on herbs and wild plants, things like dandelion, burdock, clover, wood sorrel, and those lend a very earthy, herbaceous flavor to the end product. You'll taste that, you'll pick it up in the finished product, which you don't get with the canned stuff. I guess if there's something we've been able to give back, it's just sparking some creative ideas for farming on Long Island, where land is hard to come by, and if you do get it, it's quite expensive. So these small kind of farming ventures where you're working with a small amount of land and producing maybe a whole lot of product out of it could be the future out here. With the pandemic, we pretty much saw a complete loss of income. Getting the product into a brick and mortar retail store for people that don't want to go online to buy it has been really important. We've just started rolling that out over the past couple months and have it in a couple shops here on Long Island, and hopefully it'll be all over the East Coast soon. Checking on these guys and getting a call from a chef that served them over the weekend on his menu, and his customers were raving about them, and he wants to buy another, 300. That's a big time reward. That makes the whole thing kind of worth it.